Everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Make or Break Fantasy Podcast. Today will be just me and Anthony joining you. Kind of the usual suspects here, but Sam's out today. How are things going with you today?
Just getting through another start of the week, trying to figure out who to pick up and who to get rid of.
Yeah, waivers are insanely tough this week. Like, I think, with 6 teams on bye, I mean, I don't even know. I haven't been hit that hard by it. I mean, I've had my tough bye week already, but I know there are, I mean, 6 teams is kind of huge.
Yeah, I did okay with spreading out my bye weeks. I got Todd Gurley on bye this week, but otherwise, I've got most of my team. I got a couple players each week, so
Yeah. I tend to like to balance. I mean, if I can balance it, I usually don't I guess, think too much about it when I'm either getting a player or, well, I guess I don't think too much about it when I'm drafting a player. When I'm getting a player, I definitely check out their bye week and, make sure that it's not going to hurt me too much, especially in the playoff push. All right. So, first thing is waiver wire. I definitely want to cover this today since, when a lot of people are hearing this, they are either going to be maybe just after the waiver wire or before. Um, you know, like we said, a lot of bye weeks this week. So who are some of your targets this week on the waiver?
this week, with all the buys, it's tough. But a couple of the guys that I'm looking at, Ted Ginn, he seems to have a connection with Drew Brees in the Saints offense, and um, he had a big game against the Packers, and I know that's not saying much because the Packers secondary isn't very good, but it seems that he has a real connection with him. Another guy I'm looking at is OJ Howard. He seems to have figured out how to, get open near the end zone, and they seem to be running plays for him. I don't know if you saw the touchdown he had on Sunday, but he ran, across the field and then up, and there was no one within 15 yards of him. So they're running stuff for him now. And another guy I'm looking at is Marquise Goodwin of the San Francisco 49ers. 2 out of the last 3 weeks, he's had 8+ targets. I know it's the San Francisco offense and it's tough, but if you're looking for value in a PPR, he might be able to provide something this week.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are good targets. Beathard, I thought looked pretty awful, so I would probably try to avoid him if you're looking at a streaming option. But yeah, I think they're definitely going to be trailing. They're definitely going to need to throw the ball, so that's definitely a good option there. Couple that I was looking at were, Josh Doxson, got the start this week. Gruden seems to, definitely have a lot of confidence in the guy. First round pick, coming out last year, really just getting healthy now. I mean, he definitely has the potential to really transform what he's doing in that offense. And, you've seen what Pryor's been doing. He can only go up. I mean, Doxson can only really take on more of that role. And I think, they need a playmaker.
Yeah,
Dion
I was
Lewis,
actually just reading. Sorry to interrupt. I was just reading
that's
too
right.
that Pryor was having a hard time picking up their offense. So another good, I guess, point towards Doxson.
Yeah, I mean it's not as simple as the the Browns just run straight and we'll throw the ball up in the air and you try to catch it. Dion Lewis is another guy I think is interesting. Patriots backfield's tough, so I don't think Dion Lewis is going to be a guy you're starting week in and week out. But I definitely think he has some potential, on the ground, to make some waves. At least, I mean, get you through some of the bye weeks that are coming up. Some quarterback options: Josh McCown and Matt Moore. I kind of put them in the same breath because I think if you're looking for someone right now, Josh McCown might be the better option. Just had a nice game against the Dolphins defense, which has been pretty good this year. And then Matt Moore, I think he has some long-term appeal. I mean, they've been calling for Matt Moore for weeks. Um, Jay Cutler's been getting booed. I only think, Matt Moore is going to help the situation. I think he could actually be a viable streamer in some good matchups. Latavius
He
Murray,
looked good at the end of last season too.
yeah, I mean, he's been a serviceable guy for him. I mean, people were talking about him over Tannehill at one point. And I mean,
Exactly.
I'm not, Captain Tannehill over here, but I think Matt Moore's got something to offer.
Hmm.
Um, Latavius Murray, I think he's a guy that may have been dropped in some shallower leagues, after a couple rough outings to start. I don't think he's, going to be this every week. I don't even think he's going to be, a weekly starter. But I think in a matchup dependent, type role, I think he could be a decent flex. And then Tyler Croft would be the last one. He's really taken on the Eifert role, and I mean, he seems to have a connection with Andy Dalton. So, I mean, he might be a good guy to get you through, if you're streaming tight ends, he might be a guy to get you through some weeks here, but, definitely another option. The other thing I was going to say is that, this is a big bye week. A lot of prominent, I guess, teams on bye. And actually, if you're not really, desperate for anything in particular that's on your waiver wire, so if you don't have any huge holes, it might actually be a good week to save your number one claim or just not claim anyone. And then after waivers run, scoop up some of those players like, the Jags defense or, someone that might be, handcuffed you're looking for. So like, um, you know, Darren McFadden, someone like that if you're a Zeke owner. It might be a good, this is definitely going to be a week to keep an eye on the waivers, see who people drop and, try to swoop in and maybe, set yourself up for the next week's coming.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally agree. Especially if you're, like you said, if your team's doing pretty well right now and you don't need anything, or the likelihood that you're not going to get one of those top guys that are available.
yeah, absolutely. So then some of the news that happened this weekend, we're not going to go game by game like we did last week or last time, but we're going to just hit on some points here, things that happened, things that might have happened 2 weeks ago that now are maybe a little different outlook. First one, kind of has that feel to it. AP comes out running like crazy, last week. Everyone's, oh, is he going to be an RB1, RB2 rest of the season? What is this new, rejuvenated AP? Follows it up with a real tough performance. I mean, even before Palmer went down, I mean, was not looking good. I mean, what do you think? What's your rest of season outlook for AP?
With AP and I guess the Cardinals in general, had that injury, just the broken arm. What's his name? I can't think of his name right now.
Palmer.
Palmer. Thank you. That injury to Palmer just absolutely decimated the fantasy value of the Arizona Cardinals. They actually started to look like they could be fantasy relevant again with AP in the mix and Palmer in the mix. Without Palmer, though, I don't see Drew Stanton as a viable backup as far as fantasy value is concerned. And I don't see what they could change to make that offense more potent.
Yeah, I mean they're a vertical offense. If they can't get the ball deep and throw the ball down the field, they have nothing in my opinion. So I think pretty much everyone outside of, I mean maybe on a week to week basis, AP and I guess Larry Fitzgerald.
I mean,
Um,
Fitz is he's going to get targets at least. So
yeah,
with targets comes the possibility of touchdowns. I don't know.
I would, and he runs the 4 yard route, so I would hope Stanton can throw the ball 4 yards.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
That's a big if. But yeah, I'm really down on the Cards offense. I don't think moving forward, you're gonna want to own. I think John Brown is, done. I think, JJ Nelson is done. I mean, they might have their weeks in there, but I can't see.
Nothing predictable.
Yeah, they're not gonna be relevant down the stretch. Um, next quarterback I want to talk to. So you go from losing a quarterback to finding a quarterback. Carson Wentz, he's been absolutely lighting it up. He beat me this week pretty much single-handedly. It was a great feeling. But Carson Wentz has been just nothing short of spectacular. I mean, is he the best quarterback in fantasy right now?
Mm, I mean, Doug Peterson has shown no, hesitancy to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. Um, he threw those two picks early yesterday. So I still think he's got some of that young quarterback in him, and at times he'll make some mistakes. So I'm not ready to throw him in as the number one fantasy quarterback. But if he's a guy that you have an opportunity to get for a decent price, I would definitely be buying. Because the NFC East, their defenses are not good this year. So outside of the Eagles, so you've got a potential for a lot of points to be scored down the stretch.
Yeah, I think he's probably a top 3 guy right now. I mean, if you look at you have I guess Wentz, you have Brady, Dak. I guess you could even throw in that conversation. Outside of that, it's you lost Rodgers. Matt Ryan's
You
been
got Breeze who's consistent. Matt
yeah.
Ryan's up and down.
Matt Ryan's
I
been down,
yeah,
just down.
I was trying to be nice, but yeah. Outside of quarterback, I mean Cam's up and down. So I mean he's definitely top 3, top 4, but to say number 1, I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah, I would probably put Brady at number 1, but I think Carson Wentz is a guy that it's hard to argue with production. He's been spectacular.
Yeah.
Same game this week. Terrell Pryor. I mean, Washington's offense has been humming for the most part. I mean, they're scoring touchdowns, they're putting up points. Defense is struggling a little, but that's what happens when you're down your number 1 corner, who's also the best player in your defense. But Terrell Pryor. I mean, what do you do with him at this point?
I mean, you keep him on your bench and see if he figures it out. We talked about it earlier. There's reports coming out that he just isn't picking up the offense, and I mean, maybe that's to be expected because he's a relatively new wide receiver and he's going to a team with a coach like Jay Gruden who has a pretty, I guess, complicated offense, and so maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve there. In deeper leagues, you're definitely not dropping him, but in more shallow leagues, you can't play him, and at this point, he's not worth rostering. So I mean, you got to drop him in those shallow leagues.
Yeah, I think anything under a 12-team league, I mean, he's droppable. I'm not saying you have to drop him, just go out and dump him. But if there's a guy that's out on the waiver wire, or you want to add some depth at a different position, I have no problem cutting him loose. I mean, he's not even a buy low at this point. I mean, you're gonna find him on your waiver wire if you want him, and I would probably prioritize a guy like Doxson over him at this point because it's at least Doxson they're planning to put him into the offense, and he's shown some big playability. I mean,
well, and the thing about Doxson too, and I kind of touched on it with Pryor, is he's had a year to learn the offense. Even though he couldn't play last year, he got to know the playbook, and even in practice was kind of able to build a rapport with Cousins. So he's got some things working in his favor now that he's actually healthy.
Yeah, I think I definitely think he could make some plays down the stretch. I mean, I think Pryor's kind of in that same vein with Crowder, where you're just kind of, if you need the roster spot, you're cutting them. I mean, I cut Crowder a couple weeks ago in a 12-team league, and I have no remorse about it. I mean, it was I didn't feel bad about dropping him. I mean, I don't feel like I lost out on anything, and he's still sitting on the waiver wire. So it's just one of those things. Another thing is, with the buys, I mean, if you own Jags defense, are you dropping the Jags defense this week to pick up a defense, or are you holding on to them and going to roster 2?
Well, I mean, I had the Broncos defense a couple weeks ago, and I rostered 2 for that week. I think it all depends on the rest of your team, your win-loss situation, what the rest of your league looks like. Like, for example, if you're sitting at 5-2 right now, and you've got a lot of teams at 3-4, 4-3, and your matchup opponent-wise looks like you could potentially win with what you've got on your roster. Maybe for the long term, you roster the second defense just for this week. And then on the other hand, if you're 3-4, 2-5, and you need to make a move to to get a defense, but you can't afford to drop any of the potential points on your bench with the bye weeks. You got to do what you got to do and drop them.
Yeah. I think, it's all roster dependent, obviously, kind of like you said. I mean, for me, I would, if I could, I'd hold on to him for sure. I mean, you think about it, like, it's hard to drop the number one fantasy defense. But I mean, like, I'm just kind of paging through my team here, and I have two empty roster spots right now after a trade today. But even before that, I mean, I would much rather drop a guy like Rawls or, I guess Andrew Luck. I would drop Andrew Luck for,
Yeah, because who knows if he's going to play this year?
doesn't
At
even
this
look like it.
point,
It
right?
doesn't
At
look
this
like
point, his value is, I mean, essentially nothing to you. And if I mean, if you drafted Andrew Luck, I'm assuming you have a competent backup. Even if it's you probably have like a Phillip Rivers, or you had a Carson Palmer, and now you're looking for you had something in that the veteran quarterback range to start when he was obviously going to be out. So tough situation with him. Hopefully we're wrong and he's back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm cutting Andrew Luck if there's anything out there. I would cut him for Josh McCown. I would cut him for Matt Moore at this point because I mean, so Andrew Luck, is when he's right, usually a top 5 fantasy quarterback. If you think about it this year and just looking going forward, tell me how many of these games you would feel comfortable starting Andrew Luck in. So he's out against Cincinnati this week, Houston, Pittsburgh, then they have a bye, then Tennessee, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Denver, Baltimore.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough schedule, especially coming back off an injury, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if they just said throwing the towel on this season and have him fully ready to go next season.
Yeah, I mean, let Jacoby Brissett just take the reins. I mean, kind of coast it out and see where you get. I mean, honestly, they have so many holes in their team at this point. Bringing Andrew Luck back for an extra 3, 4 wins is, in my opinion, it's
Well,
not worth
yeah,
it.
it's yeah, not it wouldn't be smart for their long term plan
Yeah, I think
because he's still really young.
I don't think you see him back this year, unless they bring him back for like maybe the last 2, 3 games, just to kind of give the ode to not missing a full season. But
Yeah,
you've seen
maybe.
Peyton. I mean, you've seen Peyton do it before. I mean, how long was he out when came back and lit the NFL up? I mean, literally went crazy. And I don't think Andrew Luck comes back and does that. He obviously doesn't have the same weapons that Peyton had, but in the same
Mm-hmm.
point, I mean, that's your franchise. I don't.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
don't. I would be shocked if he played this year.
Yeah. I mean, if you hung on to Andrew Luck to this point, and there's something better out there that maybe you get, a quarterback that's going to be have a good matchup in 2 weeks. I'd go that route.
Yeah, for sure.
So next one would be the Broncos offense. I mean, Trevor Siemian has been god awful. We'll start with that. But I mean, are you buying into any of them into turning it around and being
I guess I'm just buying into the Broncos as a team. They've shown the flashes um, offensively that they can put up points, and I think it's just they're going to have their bad weeks. That's just part of it with having Trevor Siemian as your quarterback. Um, but they've got weapons on the outside. Their running backs seem to produce, even though the way they're used is kind of all over the place and hard to predict. But they seem to whenever they get put in the situation, whether it's Jamal Charles catching passes out of the backfield, or just gutting who they got a couple weeks ago, where they just ran for like 120 yards or something
yeah,
like that. So,
yeah.
or with C.J. Anderson. So I don't know. I just think it's going to be more of a team up and down versus any one individual player.
Yeah, I think last week was a good I think it was a good showing for them to, kind of see like, all right, Trevor Siemian's not going to sling the ball over the field and we're going to win games. We need to, slow the pace down, control the ball. I definitely think CJ Anderson is a guy that, I trust moving forward. That being said, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 running back, top 5 or anything like that. I think he's a top 20 guy. Someone that you can start week in and week out. I would trust him moving forward. I think Demaryius Thomas will be fine. I think, Emmanuel Sanders will still have his weeks. I think Emmanuel Sanders being out is actually hurting the offense.
Yeah,
And
right.
I,
Because then you have Benny Fowler as your
yeah,
second receiving option.
yeah, Derby mixing in. I mean, you lose so much when you don't have those two outside threats, and I think that's hurting CJ Anderson. So I think once he comes back, that'll take a little bit of pressure off him. I mean, you just saw Demaryius have a tough week. I mean, there's nowhere else to throw the ball. You gotta have someone to do something. So I think they'll be okay. I'm not, they're not going to be a juggernaut, but I think, they could be a borderline playoff team, if everything goes right for them. And I think they're going to give the Chiefs a game this week. So who knows? I mean, I have confidence in them. So the Dolphins, another quarterback dilemma here. I mean, or is it? I mean, how does I guess Matt Moore really impact the fantasy options that you see with the Dolphins?
I think I would definitely want to see at least one full game before we make any jump decisions as to what that's going to do. Um, Jarvis Landry, the way they use him in the dink and dunk game, especially in PPR, there's no impact on his value whatsoever unless Matt Moore starts slinging it all over the place downfield. It probably helps Jay Ajayi because Cutler is not good and holds on to it too long, and for whatever reason, just can't find success. You know, so it's just I think it helps more than it hurts, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. This early.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I think Matt Moore's, he's an interesting flyer if you have some bench space and maybe you had Andrew Luck and their quarterbacks are bare on the waiver wire. I think he's interesting. For the weapons, I don't think it hurts. Like you said, I think, you're definitely gonna still get production out of Landry. I think, Kenny Stills, while Parker's out, I think Kenny Stills is an interesting option. Matt Moore seems to really like throwing him the ball. And, once Parker comes back, I mean, all it does is add another weapon. So I think Ajayi will turn it around. I have faith in him. I think, having Matt Moore behind center might actually be a nice bump for him, just because I think, Matt Moore is a better downfield passer than Cutler at this point. And I think, with less turnovers, they're going to have the ball for longer. So it might be an interesting, buy low if you want to, start looking at JHI. So, the Falcons, everyone saw the supposed, it was supposed to be a Super Bowl matchup. It was supposed to be, the high scoring game, supposed to be, huge points, and the Falcons put up 7. Are you are you worried about, just the Falcons in general?
I don't know. They're just kind of like they started off the season pretty well, and then they just kind of feel like now they're hitting the Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah.
Like it's, you woke up early and you felt okay, and then the hangover set in. That's kind of what this feels like. Um, I'm not, I'm not quite sure what to think of them. I mean, you got to believe in their talent for the most part. With Matt Ryan, being an MVP, and Julio Jones, arguably the best receiver in football, and the twin tower, not towers, but the monsters at running back with Freeman and help me out. I'm his
Coleman.
name's slipping. Coleman, thank you. Um, they just got so much talent there that you'd think they're going to turn it around. Now, you know, I don't know if you watched the game, but Austin Hooper. I mean, that was probably the most lackadaisical uh, Austin Hooper, Stanford. Like I don't know what he was saying whenever he said that, but I got a good laugh out of it. And I would think, like I said, I'm not bailing on the Falcons yet.
Yeah, I'm not out on the Falcons by any stretch. I think Freeman's still, top 5 running back, maybe top 8 at worst. Matt Ryan, I'm starting to get into the camp of, like if you have Matt Ryan, you're not getting rid of him. But I'm not feeling great about, him as a top 5 option moving forward. And then Julio Jones, I think he's a week in and week out starter. I mean, there's no question. But my take on him is that I don't think he's a top 4 guy right now. I mean, moving forward, I wouldn't put him in my top 4. It's crazy
That's
to
tough.
say.
That's tough. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know who you feel more comfortable in, week out, though.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at your lineup and you see Julio Jones in there, you're like, oh, you always got a chance. My thing is like, you look at the fantasy points right now, and you think of the top 5 receivers off the board. So like Antonio Brown, Julio, Odell Beckham, and you
AJ
have
Green,
AJ Green, Mike Evans.
Mike Evans.
You know, Brown, Green, and Evans are all top 10 guys right now. I mean, that's what you take him for. You're not like, you don't take Brown because you know he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver. You don't take, Green because you know he's going to be the number 3. It's like you're basically just hedging your bets on top 10 guys. And Julio is not returning anywhere near that value. And with the way their system's running right now and the way Matt Ryan's playing, I don't think that I'm not confident that he's going to continue like put up top 10 value because I think their play calling is atrocious. I mean, moving offensive coordinators has hurt them so much more than they even understand. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, when they said he was leaving last year, I know I was worried, but I didn't realize it was going to be this bad. I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to see for sure. I mean, I know. I mean, you mentioned it in the past as a buy low. It's a guy that I'm definitely interested in. Long term down the road. What's what's he got the rest of the season? Because I think the Falcons are going to be playing in a lot of meaningful games, and that's going to translate to a lot of targets for Julio Jones.
yeah, I think, you look at it. I mean, his matchups aren't great upcoming, but they're kind of, like good, bad, and then potentially has a great end of season schedule. I mean, he's got the Jets, Carolina. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, Carolina's not great, even though he torched them last year. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, which is an amazing matchup. Seattle, not great. Tampa Bay, awesome. Minnesota, not a great matchup. Then he has New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans. And you think about it, like New Orleans was bad in the past. They're not bad this year. I mean, they're not great,
That
but
those games, if the Saints, or I'm sorry, if the Falcons defense can't turn it around and get back to kind of that championship form that they were in last year, because they were really good last year
yeah.
defensively. If they can't find that form, those games against the Saints are going to be fun to watch, I think, because the Saints struggled to stop the Packers until Mike McCarthy went in at halftime and changed whatever his game plan was. Um, so,
You mean run,
uh,
run, pass? Run, run, pass?
yeah. So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be a fun division to watch down the stretch because I don't think Carolina's going anywhere either.
Yeah, I think, Carolina's still in the mix. I'm not putting them as like a top option, at least at this point. I think right now the premier team in that division is the Saints. They have the defense to match the offense at this point, and in their building, they're going to be tough to beat. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
that's the thing. It's like you put them on the road. Like this past weekend, Aaron Rodgers in that game, that's a 3-score game going into half. I guarantee it because I mean, you don't turn the ball over to the Packers and just expect them to not score. So
Right. They don't punt on both of those.
yeah,
Maybe you
exactly.
get one of them to punt. They're going to score on the other.
Yeah, I just think this weekend was a little uneven in terms of if you want to really break the game down.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean Jalen Collins isn't playing for the Falcons. He'll be back in the back half of the season. I definitely think their defense is improving. I think they have a good shot at making the playoffs. I just their offense just worries me. And like you think about it, so Julio had a 20 almost 25-point game in PPR against the Patriots, which I think we all kind of expected a big game. If he doesn't catch that ball at the end and Malcolm Butler intercepts that, you're looking at about a 15-point game right there. I mean, I think there's a little bit more worry with that than, Julio. Oh, Julio had 25 points versus, oh, Julio had 15 against the worst pass defense in the NFL.
Yeah, I guess.
So, I
It's
mean,
fair.
and now that Sanu's back, I would definitely say Austin Hooper is kind of, I wouldn't say off the streaming radar, but I'm not, nearly as
You're
excited
not
about.
interested.
Yeah, I'm not really interested because him and Sanu on the field together, Sanu just eats up all those mid-range targets, and I definitely think,
He's so much more explosive and so much better.
yeah, and I think
So that could change things too.
yeah, and I think what's gonna end up happening with that offense is that Sarkisian, I have to believe he's going to realize that if he wants to keep his job, Julio Jones is the way to do it. I think he'll turn it around. I'm just hoping he does it quickly before, they, I guess,
Before it's too late.
yeah, they throw away 12 games of the season and they're just like, oh, shoot, we have the one of the best receivers in football out there, just, kind of doing lines or something, just like, hey, go deep, you're good. So we'll see. I don't know, but I'm a little nervous about the Falcons. This guy, I'm way more nervous about this one. Martavis Bryant. What are you doing with this
Dude, I've
situation?
said it since the preseason. I don't want him on my team. I'm not going to give anything up for him. That's the end of it. I've said it. I said I don't remember if we talked about him on the first pod or not, but I know I was talking to you. And I said, I do not want anything to do with Martavis Bryant. His talent is undeniable, but he just, no, he's not on the field. There's just something that's not clicking.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how many little swing passes, like, end arounds or whatever they run with him. I mean, they're trying to get him the ball. He's just not open. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster at this point, right now, should be playing all of Martavis Bryant's snaps. I mean,
He just went into the concussion protocol today, so we'll see if he's available this weekend. But
no, I don't have him. But Martavis Bryant, in my opinion, is droppable. And if Juju Smith-Schuster was out there healthy, I would drop Martavis Bryant for him today. I don't think he has almost any long-term value at this point, other than, you're stashing him on your bench. I mean, if you see him on the waiver wire, you're probably picking him up, but behind guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, in a 12, 14 team league, yes, of course, you're stashing him on the end of your bench because you're hoping that at some point he figures it out. But I mean, it went from bad home road splits to
just
just
bad.
bad. I mean, I would love to say there's some upside with him, but I mean, all the extracurricular social media stuff isn't helping him. I mean, he's calling Juju Smith-Schuster out on social media. I mean, it's one thing to say you're better than the guy, then go show it. I don't
Yeah,
I don't understand
I got nothing else to say about him. I've said my 2 cents. It hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Next.
All right. So then another disappointing offense, I would say, especially this weekend, was the Titans. Going into Cleveland or playing against Cleveland, you kind of expect at least the passing game to get going. And Mariota just looked dreadful. I mean, he missed.
I think he's still banged up, and I think that's really affecting him because
Yeah.
it takes him out of, a big part of his game is that run option. And if he can't run, that kind of, you start to think about, okay, where's this defender? Where's the edge rusher coming from, instead of just, reacting to the play. So I think that's playing a bigger part in his performance than I think anything else. And so until he's healthy, I'm not ready to bail yet because he was so productive early on and he was so productive last season.
Yeah, I'm not ready to bail on the offense, definitely. I think that, I think the hamstring's definitely hampering him more than people realize, like you said, just because, I mean, you think about it. So your hamstring, I mean, you use it to push off, you use it to move around the pocket, you use it to really get behind throws, extend plays, and that's kind of his calling card. I mean, being mobile, having that option to, take off and run. I think that's really been a huge piece that's been missing for him. I mean, he missed Delaney Walker on 2 throws this weekend that were just easy money in the bank touchdowns that I think any other week he makes. That being said, I'm not long term. I'm not worried about Mariota. I just think you're going to have to suffer through maybe a few more weeks of this. But if it does continue, might be something to explore. Grabbing a guy like Josh McCown, grabbing a guy like Matt Moore if he comes back and is strong. It might be interesting. The running game, what do you make of it?
It's as far as I can tell, it's the hot hand approach. It's, hey, who looks good today? Well, we'll keep giving you the ball. That's the only. I mean, I don't really know what the other explanation could be for that.
Yeah, I think to me at least, what it seems like, DeMarco Murray is clearly, in my opinion, is clearly the best running back in that backfield. He's banged up. He's got, the hamstring, and one of his quotes before the game was actually like, most people wouldn't play through this. Most people wouldn't play with this injury. So
Well,
I
that's
think,
good. I'm glad you are.
yeah, I think,
Instead of getting healthy.
exactly. From a fantasy standpoint, we're not, if you own DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, which you should, you're definitely hoping for DeMarco to sit those games out because you'd like, just to have the one clear cut, front runner.
Well, I mean, if you're a Titans fan, you're hoping for that because I mean, Derrick Henry, when he gets consistent carries, he's not bad, and if you can get your better running back healthy and survive with, I think, a competent backup, why wouldn't you? Wouldn't as just as a fan of the team, why wouldn't you want that?
Oh yeah. No, I definitely think, they need to get him healthy and get him right somehow. And I think, it'll be a good tell, get to the bye, kind of rest it up, see how he comes back. And I think DeMarco Murray could have a really strong finish to the season once he gets right. Because I actually think, I think he's probably one of the more talented running backs in the NFL. And I think Henry is trending that way. I don't think in a limited role like he's in, he's set up for success. So I'm not starting him independent unless Murray's out.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I know at one point it was kind of like, is it going to be a 50-50 split? Is Murray going to, go down to basically taking Henry's role? And I think, they've shown that Murray is still their guy. I just think, right now it's about getting him healthy. So one thing I just wanted to note, we don't even have to talk about it that much. Cooper Kupp, my boy.
His first touchdown since week 1.
And he looked great doing it.
It was bound to happen.
He could have had a much bigger game. He had so many targets in this game. It was ridiculous. Still, like Jared Goff just loves that guy. So I think, he's a flex guy, bye week fill in at best. Obviously, they're on a bye this week, but
Throw Robert Woods in that category too.
Yeah, Robert Woods, still another solid option. Sammy Watkins is droppable. Like you can, if you need roster space, you have someone on a bye right now, or if he's on your bye and you need a wide receiver, drop Sammy Watkins because I don't know what is going on. You trade all that to get Sammy Watkins on your team and don't use it. I mean, it blows my mind how you can have someone that talented on the outside and just completely have no ability.
Forget about him.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. But
I don't know.
From a fantasy standpoint,
they're winning, so I can't.
They are winning.
And Todd Gurley's looking good doing it, so I can't. I don't know. Whatever they're doing is working right now in LA. At least on that side of the city.
Todd Gurley is a special talent. I mean, that guy he's ridiculous. I mean, I think, when we had talked about this a few weeks ago where it was like, do you sell Todd Gurley based on the matchups? Do you hold on to him? And, what I had said was, I'd definitely sell him, but I'd be selling for like an elite player. I mean, you're looking at a guy like AJ Green or, or higher, essentially. Like That's kind of the floor. I mean, it's like you're not selling him just to sell him. You're not like downgrading him. You are selling him to get, like if you are running back rich and you need a wide receiver, like that's what you're doing. But outside of that, Todd Gurley and his usage is essentially matchup proof, in my opinion.
Well, the usage alone, he's guaranteed 90% of the touches as far as handoffs are concerned. and then he's going to get at least 5 targets a game out of in the passing game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like you said, right now he's matchup proof. Fingers crossed that stays that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, all you can say is what a turnaround from last season. Because,
Oh yeah.
and I mean the Rams as a whole, they were terrible. And all of a sudden this year with the new coach, they figured it out. It looks like for now.
I was gonna say one question number one, is Sean McVay coach of the year so far this year?
He's got to be, right. Who else? Who else is really in contention?
Um, trying to think. I mean, maybe Doug Marrone from Jacksonville, maybe. That would
Yeah,
be the
maybe.
that would be my only. I think just off the top of my head, that's the only other one. I mean, Bill Belichick, obviously, but you can't give it to him every year. But and then question number two was Jeff Fisher the worst coach in the NFL last year?
I think he's been a bad coach since he made it to the Super Bowl with the Titans.
Yep.
It's just been a slow and painful decline ever since.
I think Jeff Fisher was easily the worst coach in the NFL last year. All right, so two more quick, news discussions here. One is going to be, Cam. I mean, he went from terrible to, oh man, he's back. Everyone pick him up, to terrible. I mean, he looked brutal against Philly, and he looked brutal last week. I mean, yes, he'll scratch you out maybe 20 points in one of those matchups.
I'm going to keep this short. His floor for all of those second and third tier quarterbacks is probably the highest because of his likelihood of getting a rushing touchdown being where it is, because he is the goal line back. His ceiling, who knows? It's obviously extremely high. It's just he's a frustrating player to watch because he's going to have games where he throws 3 or 4 picks, maybe fumbles. There's not much to say because there's no because he's got so much talent and because he has so much athleticism. It's hard to say that he's not a viable option on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think he went from a player that was like must-watch television every time he stepped on the field because he was so exciting to watch to like if you own him in fantasy, do not watch the game. Like that is my advice. Do not watch it because he might get you 16, 18, 20, 20 plus points. Likely it's not going to be pretty. And
Right.
if you own Evan Funchess, if you own, why am I forgetting their other receiver's name?
Kelvin Benjamin.
If you own McCaffrey, don't watch the game. Do yourself a favor, pick another player that you own, watch that game because, wow, I mean, it's been ugly at times, and especially for McCaffrey owners, I mean, that's frustrating. I mean, he
I
gets his
don't understand what
points.
they're doing with McCaffrey. I don't get it.
I don't either. I don't think it seems like they only want to get him the ball in the passing game, and it's like try to open some holes for the guy. I mean, you can't run the ball right now.
Well,
I
and
don't.
you're doing things that are really predictable with him.
Yeah. So I forget in the draft. So Dalvin Cook was there when they took McCaffrey, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
believe so. So in my opinion, I mean, injury, to the side. I think Dalvin Cook is a much better fit in that offense than McCaffrey because, in my opinion, like I don't think McCaffrey would fit the Viking system, but McCaffrey would have been great on a team like New Orleans, who wants to, pitch the ball over the field, maybe run a little bit between the tackles, but like you have a Mark Ingram type. I don't think they would have drafted him, but I don't think he fits the system. At
Yeah.
least, at least it
At
doesn't
least
seem like it.
what they're trying to do with him, right?
Yeah. So I think it's kind of like square peg round hole there, but Cam is the guy you're starting. He's just from an NFL.
Most likely you don't have a better option.
Yeah, from an NFL standpoint, he's not playing good football. But from a fantasy standpoint, there's a lot of that happens. So outside of that, next area is just Zeke. I want to just throw in a quick hitter here on the situation. He went absolutely crazy this weekend. That was impressive. I mean, he went crazy. But, from the situation, from the legal standpoint, I know none of us are legal experts. I've been doing some reading on it. I've listened to a few people talk about it. And while there's not over optimism on it, I would say the one thing is that so what's going on right now, for those of you who aren't overly familiar with the situation, they are going back to court to see if he can be granted a stay, so a legal stay, which would allow him to play through the season, and until an investigation can be completed. That being said, he is allowed to play this weekend. The NFL tried to get a rush ruling on this, and they were denied. Once the judge comes back, they will make a ruling. That being said, as well, the judge that's sitting in for the judge who will rule on this actually said that he believes there is enough evidence for Zeke Elliott to be granted a stay. That being said, most times one judge will not overrule another judge. That's not, a stamp of approval by any stretch. That's nothing for sure. But they said 9 times out of 10.
Basically, what Phil's saying is you have this week with him, and you'll find out more next Tuesday or Monday.
So there is reason for optimism. You don't have to go, sell them for peanuts. You don't have to just, take the first offer you get. I would say unless you're getting first, maybe second round value, you're not dumping them.
I think it's pretty hard to trade him at this juncture, because if you have the depth to trade for him, knowing that this could potentially be his last week of your fantasy season, essentially. Because
unless the playoffs, yeah.
Well, because if he plays this week, this is week 8, right? Yeah, this is week 8. So he's going to play this week. Let's say he starts serving his suspension next week. You're talking about 6 games. That brings us to week 14.
Yeah.
And so that gets you, I think that's the first week of most playoffs. Most playoffs, 14, 15, 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not expecting him back till the semifinals of your playoffs. It's a tough situation to be in, because you're not going to sell him for nothing, because there's the potential that he could be here, but you're not going to give up a ton, because it could be a 1-week thing and he could be done. So
yeah,
I think it's really just a holding pattern for Zeke owners.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you're not going to get any less value, or you're not going to get any more value if you trade him today versus if you trade him at your trade deadline. Because, I mean, the players that you're the players are going to be the same. It's going to be a really good team that is looking to bolster their playoff roster, and they're going to try to, give you a 2-for-1, and that might be something to consider at that point based on what your team looks like. But at this point, I would say hold him. Try to use him this week unless you get a crazy good offer on someone who's super optimistic, or someone who's
slap that person because they're dumb. Just kidding.
Because all they had to do is wait another couple weeks, and they could have potentially got him for pennies in the dollar. But we'll see. I mean, it's a situation to definitely monitor, and I'm excited to hear the ruling personally, because I think it's everything that I hear is trending in one direction, but you can never be sure, because I mean, we've gone through the ups and downs of this already, especially with Brady, and it is a totally different situation to Brady. I will say that for people who are comparing,
it isn't. The only comparison is, or the only comparison is that the NFLPA gave the commissioner these powers.
Yeah.
So if their ruling is, you eat what you sow, then it's going to be just like the Brady ruling, because that's essentially what it came down to. If they decide that that it's really unfair and there should be at least a stay to dig up more information, then he probably serves it next year, because I don't see him not serving anything at all. But I'm not a legal expert. I don't know.
I think he will serve something at some point. I think, in my opinion, if I had to just purely give my opinion, I don't want to speculate too much and give people too much false confidence. Based on what I've heard, the big difference is who they've been able to interview. And they've not been able to interview the accuser in the sexual assault case. So that's a huge difference. I mean, Brady's argument was that they didn't get to interview the NFL's lawyer. Kind of silly, in my opinion. But that being said, like I said, you don't want to speculate too much. We'll definitely have more information after this week. You'll know by probably Wednesday what the ruling's going to be, and just hope for a really big game from Zeke that we win. Or
Yeah,
you
exactly.
get a really big game and you lose. Healthy. All right. So let's get out of the news. Go to some buy low, sell high. So what would you say are three good buy low candidates right now for teams looking to continue to improve their roster?
So I've got a group of players that I would be interested in buying low in, and that's the Green Bay Packers receivers. Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb did not have good games this week against the Saints. However, going into the bye, I think they're going to look at that game film and realize that they have to cut the ball loose a little bit to have a chance to survive. And with the news that Rodgers could be back in December, I think those guys, you probably have Jordy owners and Devontae owners that are a little freaked out right now. Possibly, at 4-3, 3-4 on the edge, and you might be able to swing something that's beneficial for you down the road. And then another guy that I'm interested in is Devontae Freeman. You talked about being cautious with the Falcons, and you might have an owner that is a little nervous about the way Coleman's being used, about their offense in general, and you might be able to get something. You might be able to get a very valuable running back. I don't think he's quite a top 5 running back this year. I don't even know if he's top 8, but top 10, top 12 running back. Doesn't ever hurt to have those on your roster. So those are a series of players that I would be trying to go after.
Yeah, I really like. Devontae Freeman, like you said, I really like him moving forward. I think they're going to be. I mean, he's been so effective on the ground. I can't even figure out why they go away from him. But another thing, you mentioned the Packers receivers. I think, if you're able to buy low on them, I think they're going to hold. I think they're going to outperform what everyone thinks. Everyone's saying, Brett Hundley is not all he's cracked up to be. He's not going to be that good. They watched the game last week. I mean, you have to realize these defenses have already gone through training camp plus 7 weeks of first team reps against first team offenses. Brett Hundley has 1 week of prep with a first team offense against arguably the best team in the NFC. I mean, you can't expect much out of the gate on game 1. They're going to go into a bye. Hopefully hopefully he's going to be sitting.
Now he's got 2 weeks to prepare for his next game.
Yeah, hopefully sitting in the facility studying at this point. And you have to imagine that they're going to hold value. I would still rank them, Jordy, Adams, Cobb, but I think
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, but I think they all, kind of get into the mix here. You're going to have your Cobb game, you're going to have your Adams, your Jordy game, but I think they're all going to take a step in the right direction. Not Aaron Rodgers level, but I think they're all going to have something there.
But when you're talking about buying low,
oh yeah,
that's what you're looking for.
Definitely. So then my 3 guys that I would say, Keenan Allen, I think, he has some good matchups coming up. I mean, you have 2 tough matchups after a bye. I mean, they have the Pats this weekend, so buy low on him this week. Before that game, because I would imagine he's going to do well in that game, and his price is going to go up. CJ Anderson is another guy I think is interesting. We talked about him before, so I won't get too crazy into it. But if you get CJ Anderson, get Devontae Booker, because Booker has looked pretty good in limited time. The last guy I would say is Jay Ajayi. I definitely think that the Dolphins, their skill positions are too talented to not produce. And I think, with Adam Gase, I think they're going to figure it out. I think they're going to, settle into a pattern. I mean, Jay Ajayi's been really good in most of their wins. So I think they're going to look at that as, positive moving forward, and I think he turns it around. One question for him is health. So, kind of keep an eye on that too. Don't give up much for him, but he's going to be a guy that I think, could really spark, a second half run. So, got through buy lows. Let's look at some sell highs. I know, this is this is going to be the tough part. I'll do mine. Sell high. One, Aaron Jones, running back for the Packers. I think what you saw last week is the ceiling. I mean, 100 plus yards and a touchdown. That's awesome. I cannot. I just can't believe that they're going to cut Ty Montgomery out. He's been too good in the past where he's not going to have a role. He's going to have some type of role, and I think it's going to detract from Jones. I think Jones will be fine, but I think if you get, an owner that's running back desperate, that you could get a solid, like a high-end wide receiver too, I think you have to do that deal. Another guy would be Jordan Howard. I think everyone's seen these crazy, crazy rushing numbers out of Chicago and like, oh my God, he's getting so much work. Well, that's not going to hold up for that long when teams finally start to torch them like teams did in the first half. So I think like this weekend's gonna be very telling. I think the Saints are going to absolutely put it on their defense. I think they're gonna put up 35 plus points if I had to guess. And I don't think Jordan Howard is the preferred passing downs back. So I think he's an interesting sell high. And then the last guy I would say is probably Chris Thompson. Doesn't seem sustainable what he's doing. I mean, the rate at which he's scoring is pretty crazy. I think he's a really good, low end RB2 flex guy, especially in PPR. I think he might be closer to mid tier running back too. But I just don't. I think if you can get something that's more solid for him, so if you could go out and be like, hey, Chris Thompson for CJ Anderson, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I don't completely disagree. I think the only thing with Jordan Howard is the Bears refuse to throw the football. Literally refuse. Trubisky had 7 pass attempts this week. 7. That's unheard of in an NFL game. So I don't know. You're definitely right that if they get down, it's going to be tough. But if he can keep them in games early, he's going to put up numbers. As far as my sell highs, it's so tough. But I think a couple of guys that have, probably gotten to their like highest possible value is Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. They've played really well in the 2 weeks since trading AP. I don't know what else they could possibly do with the running backs to make their value any higher. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily selling them at this point, if it were me, but it's a Sean Payton offense. You never know what could happen on a given week. So
yeah,
I could definitely understand why there would be some concern about the sustainability of what those two have done over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, Mark Ingram is the guy that's his value skyrocketed in the last 2 weeks. I mean, he's looked great since Peterson's been gone. My thing with him and the issue that I've run into owning him is that you can't trade him for anything because everyone's going to lowball you on him because they're going to look at, their top tier running backs as like, oh, but they're better than him. So you're not getting equal value for him. And then 2, you're also, you kind of look at it like who's pushing him for touches. I mean, Kamara, like you said, has his role. Ingram's getting the bulk of the work. So it's like on a good offense, you have a good running back. If you're not getting equal value for him, just hold him. But if you can go out and get a Devontae Freeman, if you can go out and get, some top tier running backs, let's say Zeke doesn't get suspended, maybe that's a trade you make right off the bat.
Maybe a Melvin Gordon owner gets a little nervous with a couple of the inconsistent weeks that he's had. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, even like you look at Todd Gurley's matchups coming up, maybe he has a couple struggles in there, 2 week, 2 weeks. You never know. I mean, I think, those are some interesting names, but you're not like it's kind of the Todd Gurley situation. You're not selling him for non-elite talent right now. So
Right.
now let's go over, we every week or every time we're on, we talk a little bit about our league. How are things going for you, Mr. Top of the Standings?
I managed to squeak one out again this week. I moved to 6-1, still the league leader in points scored. I'm hitting my Todd Gurley bye week this week. Luckily, I've got a little bit of depth at running back. I got Amir Abdullah, who's not great, but he's startable in this week, and and I was able to pick up Orleans Darkwa, who is also on bye, but going forward, that might be a better option. But yeah, I mean, my points against is the lowest in the league, but each week in the recap they talk about what your overall record would be if you played everybody every week, and I'm 50 games over 500. So like, I can't that top being the top point scorer kind of helps negate the fact that I'm also the lowest points against.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking in our league, and there are so many 4-3 teams with such low
What aren't
points
there
against.
7? Aren't there 6 or 7?
There are a ton of 4-3 teams. I mean, there are a couple. I mean, Lee, for example, he's 4-3 with the second highest points against, and then like Matt Labuda, for example, shout out. He's 3-4 with the highest points against. So I mean, interesting. Their rosters are definitely strong. I mean, me personally, I'm in ninth place. I have let's see, the fifth point scored total. But I also have the third highest against this past week. I ran into the buzzsaw that was the highest point scorer, and I was the second highest point scorer. So
And you were the recipient of Carson Wentz. So
yeah, I went through the first half, like 90% of the first half, and I'm like, oh baby, I got a shot. I got a shot. And then it was touchdown. I'm like, okay, 6 yard strike. We're all right. Wasn't to Zach Ertz. It wasn't to Alshon. Literally a minute later. Literally a minute later. Oh, there's a 40-yard catch by Ertz. Oh, there's a touchdown by Ertz. Okay, I'm done. I'm turning this game off.
well, I was watching your score, and I saw the drive where you were up like 5.5 points, and Wentz made that throw to Clement in the end zone, and I was like, wow, that's how he loses this week.
And I
Wow.
remember that bye week. I had to start Clement.
Yeah.
I was so mad when that happened. I'm like, you don't. He scored like 3 points. Like I had to start, and
That catch was incredible.
It was a great catch. It was a great catch. I'm like,
I still don't know how he got the throw off either.
I
That
don't
whole
either.
play, I was like, what is going on?
I know, and I'm just like, yeah, just a couple turnovers, please. Like, what I really wanted to do was them to jump out to a big lead with Blunt, and then just
And then
try
just
to,
coast.
yeah, run the clock out. But man, I guess you can't. I mean, you can't fault it. It was like a game just unfolded in a way where Carson Wentz just went crazy. I mean, Washington was missing Josh Norman. I didn't really have high expectations going in. I said on Sunday night, I'm like, it's over. I'm done. But you kind of have to have some optimism that he's not going to have the best game of his career.
Yeah,
But
he had a good one. Zach Ertz he's playing really well this year too. That's another guy that
number one tight end.
definitely. You thought he was going to be good, but the last couple of years he's just kind of been a letdown. So
Yeah.
you didn't want to get too excited about it. I think the hype is real now.
Oh, it is. I agree. I actually have him and Gronk in a league. I'm trying to trade Gronk because I'm just
You can
like,
get more.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I get more value from Gronk just because of name value, and
Right.
Ertz is putting up more points. I'm like, I can't. I mean, I don't think they have the same upside, but I also think on a week-to-week basis, starting to trust Ertz more.
The floor is definitely closer than the ceiling.
Yeah,
The floors are not that far apart.
yeah. Cool. Well, good luck this week. Hopefully, can take home a couple W's here.
Hey, I mean, all those 4-3 teams need to hope that I just keep running through
That's
the
what I'm
rest of
hoping.
them.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm just like, just keep winning. Just keep winning. 'Cause- And I did look at next week. I got a little over anxious, and I play Danny on the Patriots bye.
Oh,
I was ecstatic. He has Brady, Gronk, and Hogan.
Hogan.
Yes, I was like, thank God. Like I needed that. I needed that so bad. So we'll fingers crossed on that one, but I need to get a win this weekend first. Thank God I have Zeke. But
Yeah, right.
cool. Well, for both of us, we appreciate everyone for watching today. Hopefully we gave you some good insight. The other thing I did want to note.
From us, so it's a
Oh yeah.
win-win.
Yeah. There's another thing I did want to note. Some of the info I gave from the Zeke the Zeke trial, or what's going on with him, is from Amy Dash. It's at Amy Dash TV. She's a CBS Sports legal analyst. So if you want more information on that, check her out. Great follow, by the way. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, we thank you again for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.